Hello, everyone. And so, this is another episode of Spill the Tea podcast. And I am Queen Nita, as always. Again, with me, my one and only Kofi Gbedemah.
Your serial host.
It's like I cannot
guys.
have enough of you, so I had to invite you to come back and join me.
That's your English started tickling parts of my body I didn't know existed. You can't have enough of me.
I can't have enough of you. That's why
man.
I had to get you to come back on set with me. And so
My heart cut.
yeah, and so on today's episode we are going to talk about toxic relationships. Now, the reason why I got Kofi Gbedemah to come back, KG himself, to come back on set with me is because last 2 weeks when he came, we talked about loving again. And so I thought that when we talked about loving again, there are certain things that he mentioned during the conversation, and I thought that I would need him to come and have this conversation with me about toxic relationship, as there is some correlation between toxic relationship and then also loving again. And so on that note, Kofi,
Nita, baby,
welcome.
I have come well. All pun intended.
Welcome to Spill the Tea, and it's my pleasure again to have you. And so, like I said, let's dive into the topic. You know, last 2 weeks we talked about loving again. Yes, and per our conclusion, you said that we should learn from the things that the experiences of others, and you know, the work of others and all that. And so coming from there, you know, today I want us to talk about toxicity in relationship, how it affects relationship, if there is even any correlation between toxicity in relationship and even trauma that comes with relationship, and if it also has an effect on relationships, I mean love as a whole, you know.
Thank you, Nita.
Yeah.
And based on the highly technical nature of what the topic is today, I would like to make reference to some definitions has been put out there, so that we don't go off track and we do not say things that are not true or are not verified. So, a toxic relationship, it's basically a relationship that you have that is harmful, abusive, or detrimental to a person's well-being, be it physical, emotional, or mental. It could be romantic, or it could be professional, or it could be a friendship. Then, a few things that characterize toxic relationship is emotional abuse, manipulation, lack of boundaries, possessiveness, selfishness, dishonesty, and disrespect, emotional unavailability, and we'll go through all of these one by one. Trauma bonding, it's a bit like what they call the Stockholm syndrome. And then power imbalance. I'm sure there are more, but basically these are the 10 main areas that cover
the basics that
cover toxic relationships. So from what has been officially defined as toxic relationships, and blending with my understanding of what the definition is, toxic relationships are relationships that at the end of which said relationship there is no mutual
there's no
advantage.
like balance.
You know, when we spoke a few weeks back, we established that for every kind of relationship that exists, there is the understanding that we both benefit from whatever synergies we bring into the relationship. So it's not that I befriend you, suck you dry, throw you away, and progress. As I progress, you progress. Okay, even if I retrogress, you retrogress. So that at every point in time, it is clear that we are both in it together.
Together, yes.
But from the very definition of toxic relationships, what we can then see is that it is a relationship where probably one benefits and the other doesn't. Or the other progressively over time, both of them over time retrogress, which in itself is not what relationships are defined to be. So with that, I think you can set the ball rolling.
All right, so I am from the definition and all that. Initially my intention was for us to talk about the effect of toxic relationship in amorous relationship, based on the previous conversations that we had. But from the definition, it means that there are so many things. There are so many areas of relationship that has to be looked at in terms of toxic relationship. And so should we even just talk about the amorous aspect of relationship, we're actually doing disservice to others, because it's not, and we might even let people think that toxic relationship is only limited to amorous relationship. And I think that is that's the most common view out there, that people think that toxic relationship is only limited to amorous relationship. But we have toxic relationship between parents and children, siblings, even among siblings, employers and employees, even amongst colleagues at work, even schoolmates and stuff like that. And sometimes also because of the dynamics of even in a society, your community or whatever, you might have even there might be a toxic relationship amongst neighbors and all that. And so I'm thinking at this moment that whilst the intention is for us to look at the toxic relationship in the toxicity in amorous relationship, to some extent I think that this would also be a very good platform, given the opportunity of the definition that you've given, that would also touch on the other aspects, the other toxicity in different types of relationships. so that for those that are experiencing toxicity in other relationships apart from amorous relationship, can easily recognize the sign. Exactly.
If you have lived with me for 10 minutes, you realize that I do not disassociate anything from anything, because I have, and again I personalize this, and again I might be wrong, but from my relationship everything feeds into the other. I have also said time and again that
it's like a web.
It's
they
a web.
All
every
converge.
action has a reaction. That it's what some people call the butterfly effect. If you are into that, you'll also understand that a bird or a butterfly that flaps its wings so many continents away has a chain reaction of what is happening to us today. I am a strong believer in that. So I always say that, you see, when you just define how a person should live, it doesn't matter if you are defining from an amorous perspective. In the long run, it will affect every other thing he does. When you have a person who has all the right characteristics, the right blend of everything, of understanding, of intelligence, of when somebody is what's this word? These words keep escaping me, but amenable to other ideas. When you have people who are like that, in the long run, it not only plays a role in their morals life, it plays a role in their professional life, in their friendliness, in their business. So everything is interconnected. So for me, when we talk about a toxic relationship, yes, you'd see the amorous aspect in there. But at the end of the day, you also recognize it in all the other aspects of life that are there. So,
and I think for me, what you're saying actually, to some extent, is true, in the sense that when someone, let's say someone is married, right, and the person is going through a bad marriage, or maybe a bad day from home, or is having the home is not peaceful, there are some altercations going on at home, you know,
it manifests.
It manifests even through the person's productivity at work, and
yes.
even the person's general demeanor and interaction with others. The person becomes unapproachable, very mean, you know, like is bitter towards everyone, and basically you does not want anybody in their, like in everywhere would say that Nushanu domavam.
Yes.
Amanu vana nakpama kukamanu domavam. It's basically like I don't want anybody in my space, because what the inability to deal with whatever it is that is going on
in your personal life,
you know,
has the potential to have a chain reaction in every other sphere you find yourself.
And then everybody gets affected, because once at work, you know, people are having a bad day at work, your colleagues are having a bad day because you are having a terrible time at home, and you are transferring the anger to your colleagues at work, and aggression to your colleagues at work. They're also going home having a bad day from work. And so, like you said from the previous one, if you don't have a spouse or a partner that you can actually sit and have a conversation with and get to know the root of where the issue or what the problem is coming from, then that partner of yours or that spouse of yours also would go out.
Exactly.
Yes. So it's all
it's all interconnected. So toxicity is not a desirable characteristic anywhere you go. And
not in any form or shape.
Not in any form or shape.
Not in any form of relationship or interaction whatsoever.
At all. It must be done away with. It must be exterminated. It must be stamped out. It must be killed. It must be assassinated. It must be put to rest. It must be dead and buried.
True.
Good.
True.
So, before you can go on this quest, you must recognize it. There are many things, and you know, people in this era, we like to quote unquote name things as being woke. But
which sometimes is ridiculous, because you realize that the people don't even understand or know what they are saying, but they are just throwing the word away.
Absolutely.
They are just throwing the word out there, you know, simply because they've heard someone use it. Yeah.
Yes. So it's good to scrutinize some of these things, because we have lived with a lot of very, very bad behavior over the years. And sometimes it takes quite some research to show that this thing that we felt was normal.
Actually, it is not.
It's not.
Or maybe in certain communities it's not acceptable. Or it's not morally right in certain communities.
Good. And maybe a researcher or two have actually taken the pains to see the effects of a certain type of behavior on a community over time, and has realized that the fact that this community has not been able to develop is traced back to this behavior. So you have people say
there might be some correlation.
Yes, there's a correlation to it. So you have people saying things like, "Oh, my grandfather, he married 3. He had 20 grandchildren.
Under the circumstances, yes, it worked.
It worked.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, if you marry 3 today,
can
what
you
are you doing to yourself?
It? Yes. Even financially,
let's not even talk about because someone will say, yes, I have 20 billion. But the truth of the matter is, what are you doing to yourself? When you look at that question carefully, you realize that it's a mistake to do certain things that were acceptable 30 years ago today. So coming back,
being a devil's advocate, someone would also say that what of those in current dispensation that have successfully had polygamous marriages and maybe are married to 5, 6, 7 women, and it's a successful family.
Would have to dedicate a whole new show to that, because my issue would hover around the word successful.
Okay.
And for us to enter into what it is that you would call successful, would need another 3-4 hours
for us to
that.
dissect. Yeah. Okay.
So I would not want us to venture into that now.
Okay.
So as an aside, I'll just use that as an example.
Okay.
That it is kind of universally accepted that these days, based on everything, based on the level of quote unquote I open with day. You don't go marry 2 women and 3 women. I mean, Charlie, please. And I'm ready to take flack on that, but the fact of the matter is, it doesn't work. So, back to the issue of toxicity. There are things that we think are normal. There are actions and behaviors that we think are normal, but in fact are toxic, and which can result in very, very detrimental issues for the relationship, for yourself, and for the society at large. Because when you carry that toxicity into your workspace, it triggers
everybody.
And you would realize that behind the scenes we're having a conversation about someone that we both know, whom when they appear at any kind of social gathering, immediately everybody wants to just go home. They start looking at their watches and leave the space. So you realize that these are some of the effects of being a toxic person. Anybody whose presence brings a certain negativity to the outcome of the gathering is or can be called toxic.
A toxic person. So in that vein, right? How exactly does in itself the toxicity affects the perpetrator of it, and also the recipient or the victim of the toxicity in the relationship? Because and also, do toxic people actually know they are toxic, or there are those who do and there are those who don't? I think some are just, so before you come in, I think that there are people who are, and I know this word has been abused, narcissistic, but I'm saying it from the perspective that, because I don't want us to overuse the word toxic, okay? Are narcissistic in the sense that they have self-awareness. They are very much aware of what they are doing, are deliberate about it, but because they derive pleasure, it just pleasures them to see that they are exerting toxicity on somebody else, or they are maltreating somebody. It's just the sheer pleasure that they derive from it. You get it? And so there are people also like that, but there are also people that quite frankly do not know that they are projecting a reflection of what their own trauma of what they've gone through, and that is what they've known, for a very long time or throughout their lives. And so they think it is okay to do it onto others. So it's a projection of their own experience and their own trauma.
So
and in victimhood too, we have those that have the Stockholm syndrome and stuff like that. So how do we put all,
So let us, in order not to lose ourselves, let us understand that some of the terms we use here are clearly negative psychological terms. Now, and they are not terms or tags that one would be wished to be known by. So let's start with being narcissistic. And you see, like most psychological conditions, people who are afflicted by those conditions themselves hardly know it. I think the main difference between a psychological issue and
a character trait.
No.
Okay.
And a real a physiological medical issue is that when you have malaria, you can immediately see the symptoms. You have a temperature, you don't feel good, you throw up, you have a loss of appetite. Right away, the physiological symptoms tell you there's something wrong with you. Now, with the psychological, the issue is that a lot of times you need an outside person to diagnose you, because once you sit within that space, you think everything is all right.
But doesn't this make excuses for people that victims who become abusers? Doesn't this make excuse for them?
No, it doesn't.
Because
it doesn't. And like I was saying,
does it not speak to the issue that if a victim becomes an abuser, then that person knows exactly what he or she is doing, because that person has been a victim of exactly what he or she is doing to somebody else?
No, kind of like it's. I will not ascribe to that. It's because I look at it as it's being another scenario, and I like scenarios because they bring you as back on. Take it somebody who has gone to contract HIV from somebody else and doesn't know that they've contracted HIV, and they spread it unknowingly. Unknowingly is the key word here.
Unknowingly.
If you don't know you are spreading, you don't know, but you are spreading nevertheless. So in the same vein, when you have been treated badly, or you are the result of a toxic relation, and you go about thinking probably that is the norm or that is how you have to treat others, you do not know. So we separate it from those who have probably known or
and
are undergoing.
They themselves
yes,
are aware that
yes, I believe, and again, I always say it anywhere I am, that I am not a medical official. I do not have any technical or academic knowledge of what I speak. What I say is based purely on what I have read, what I've experienced, what I've seen,
and that of others,
who have shared with me. So I will tell you that there are people who feel that treating people in a particular manner is the norm. They need a third party.
Is it because they themselves are victims of that kind of treatment and they've become perpetrators of that treatment, or they are absolutely unaware, even though they've never experienced that treatment before, they are unaware of it, or they are just simply evil?
I would
because I also want us to put into context that there are people that are just simply evil.
Yes.
And do not necessarily have any psychological underlying.
No, but if you are evil, then you already have a psychological issue, because man, I do not think anybody was born evil. When you see a baby that was born yesterday, there's no evil in that baby. So whatever you term evil is a result of years of certain conditioning. So that's why I was trying to make the point that it also depends on what you saw, how you were raised, and what you normalize. If you are raised in a group of people who think slashing their wrists every Saturday is a show of love. You grow up thinking slashing your wrist every Saturday is a show of love. So until an external intervention comes in.
That, no, you don't.
Yes. It's and that one, you need to be reconditioned to understand that no, this thing you are doing is not good. It doesn't inure to anybody's benefit.
From what you are saying, you are bringing my mind to the fact that nature kind of plays a role in the execution or the perpetration of abuse, i.e. toxicity,
yes,
by a person.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because like I said when we started the whole discussion, what you might define, and that is why for a very long time things like trochosi, female genital mutilation were regarded, even let's go back, slavery, very, very highly toxic, unacceptable social behavior were regarded as normal. It took a lot of learning and unlearning to realize that these things that we thought were normal are not normal.
But me being an Ebe and being an Anglo for that matter and a bit biased, I think that to some extent, despite the inconsideration of what chocosi system has been towards those that have been affected or victimized by the system, I think to some extent I have my reservation to some regard on that. But I do get where you're coming from, because I there are certain parts of it I do not subscribe to. You get it? But they are also based on my own biases. Okay, I think that there are certain aspects of the chocosi that it's okay, fairly understandable.
Sure.
Yeah.
So again, to that, I like to debate. So when
we can have that conversation
later, yes. But let me just quickly chip in that you take the whole with the whole. So if trochosi has been associated with a cessation of rights, an inability to make choices, a refusal to understand that you as an individual can take decisions for yourself, in addition to other things. If trochosi represents all those things, trochosi represents all those things. Now, if you want to tell me that trochosi has aspects that give the people some kind of support system, the question I would ask is, are there not other forms of support system that can exist without the negative connotations of trochosi?
Yes.
So that's why I said I don't want us to get into that conversation. But the fact is, when a little bit is associated with the whole, it tends to define the whole.
Okay, I get where you're coming from.
Good.
I get. It's just like one nut spoiling the rest. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So that is why I would not also want to go into that conversation, because for one, as I sit here, I do not have every single fact associated with the trochosi practice. And being a proud Ebe myself, undisputably, I would stand for everything Ebe that is positive.
Yeah.
But we must also denounce
the
those
ones
that
do affect
the disadvantage
of the well-being or the advancement of our people.
So on the trochosi issue, we'll
go into that later. We'll both agree. We'll both disagree to agree that
we'll not disagree to agree. We agree to shelve it.
We agree. Okay, we both agree to shelve it
for now.
Based on our own biases.
Based on our knowledge.
Okay, well, okay. He's a diplomatic man.
A factual man.
He's a very diplomatic man. Yeah. Yes. So yes, we'll put that aside, and good, then we'll delve into it. Yes. Yeah.
So we have issues of emotional abuse, which is a sign of being in a toxic relationship. So emotional abuse refers to instances where there's a difference in opinion. You resort to name calling, you resort to belittling, or you resort to constant criticism. So I'm like, oh, you know what? When you leave the toilet seat, leave the toilet seat down, and you go and use the washroom, you leave droplets of urine on the seat. Could you next time just ensure you raise it and so that you pee and go, and then everybody's happy? Oh, you this woman, every time they complain, yourself, what school you go? Totally unrelated responses and demeaning to the issue at hand. The person says when you pee on the seat, there's urine on the seat. So two things: if you can't raise the seat, wipe the seat when you finish, or raise the seat. That's all. That's all. Where you went to school, what is neither here nor there. So that is one side. Then manipulation. A very new word that is making around these days is gaslighting. But basically it is just manipulation. Okay, all right. When I have an issue with something and I tell you, and then you want to turn it around to make it my issue.
So you are guilty of something, and then you want
me to feel invert
guilt.
The guilt to you and make you feel like it's your background that is making you think like that. This thing is perfectly normal. You know, it's manipulation. Basically, gaslighting is just manipulation to manipulate a person psychologically to think that they are the problem when in fact you are actually the problem. Okay. So manipulation. So people who are good at that, and if you realize at a point in time that throughout your relationship you seem to be the problem,
meanwhile you know you are not.
No, you are not.
Or to some extent, the fault mostly does not come from
exactly.
you.
It's that's gaslighting, manipulation. So when you find yourself in those situations, you realize that you're in a toxic situation.
To be very honest, this is actually the first time that I've actually understood exactly what gaslighting is.
Oh, okay.
There are so many words that are thrown out in these
ages.
I'm like, is it that I'm old, or I fraternize with old people, or I just do not have the ability to grasp the new vocabularies that are coming out?
It's a bit of everything. So the fact is, when you're also growing, you tend to be lost. You tend to lose touch with what you've known, with the new things, and then you are sticking to what you've always known. So when the new things are coming, you feel lost.
You get lost.
So you are growing. It's okay. It's good to grow.
Oh, please.
It's good to grow. It's a sign of advancement. It's good to grow.
Yes, sir.
So that's
this
basically
is an inner joke, please. It's an inner joke.
So yes, so manipulation, gaslighting, they fall under the same thing. Then we go to lack of boundaries, where you have professional boundaries. So you have an issue with someone, but for whatever, your wife wakes up and she hasn't made your tea for you to drink, and then she goes to work. Then you go to her office and cause a scene.
Oh, that's very.
I'm just using You see, it's crass because
I finish the scenario.
I know.
I mean, that's crass.
You know, sometimes
usually where I'm coming from.
Yes.
I think if my late grandmother, God rest her soul, was a school dropout. I mean, even with that, I mean, Katato would even not conceive that
you'll be surprised.
Her spouse will come to the market and come and create a scene because she didn't make breakfast.
You'll be surprised to know that there are societies and little pockets of societies.
Well, there's some of us had privileged backgrounds, so to speak, in terms of wealth.
Yeah, we're privileged in terms of knowledge and in terms of upbringing.
Yes.
So, but I'm just saying.
Honestly, I'm like, who will do that?
It's a literary trick. Sometimes you use a hyperbole to bring the absurdness of a small thing. So the person has actually crossed a boundary. I'm just trying to tell you that.
But this really doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
I cannot even for the life of me imagine that anybody in their right say,
you'll be surprised.
in their right senses would go on that tangent.
You'll be surprised.
Wow.
You'll be surprised.
Wow.
And probably when this goes out, you'd see some of the reactions to some of these things. So I'm just again trying to emphasize on boundaries, that what pertains to the home should maintain in the home. What pertains to professionalism should be in the professional space. What has to do with the children must be with the children, so that nobody crosses boundaries with the other.
Basically, know the space you find yourself in and
stick to it.
Yeah, stay there.
Good. So that's boundaries. So when you find people, and it happens, that's why we are saying that what we are discussing, even though we want to lead more towards the amorous, it is something that happens
and affects
every other aspect of life. Every other aspect of life.
So from where you are coming from, it's bringing my mind to a place that it looks like nowadays when you go on Facebook, right, all the keep me anonymous, it's always about something amorous, and my boyfriend and my wife and my husband and my this and my that and my that. But you with me right now, or us being on this platform having the conversation, you are letting me know that it is beyond just the amorous context of the things that we see online, and that all of these things affect us. Yes. And sometimes it is because someone messed up from somewhere and didn't find the boundary, and he crossed the boundary, so he messed up somebody else's day or time or period. Absolutely. And so we are just in a loop again.
I'm sure if you looked very hard on the internet, you'd find studies that have been able to draw a correlation between how happy people are in their amorous relationships and how productive they are at work, which results in what we call the bottom line, the commercial aspect of any work.
Yeah. And sometimes it even translates into their external family
life.
Yes. If in their amorous relationships they are happy.
Yes.
And then they become productive. Good. Like you said, in their income earning ventures. Absolutely. Then because they are earning well enough and they are being productive in their income earning ventures, then it also makes them happy because it puts them in a position where they are able to even provide for their extended. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then home front is also taken care of, and so there is not the clash of you are not providing enough for me, because then the base of it, which is our morals, is taken care of.
Exactly. So again, I'm a commercial person. My background is sales, even though I do have a degree in other things. But my professional life has been basically sales.
Yes.
And but because I also have a very inquiring mind, I have realized that some of my best
by the way, what people don't know.
No, it's okay. That's not why we're here. Let's keep on track.
Okay.
So I've also realized that I have these conversations with a lot of my clients, and I realize that my clients who pay me the best, are those
who are most fulfilled in their amorous relationships. Okay.
Again, that's my universe, and I always issue a caveat when I make pronouncements because I'm dealing with a small. That's my experience so in my small circle of maybe about 300 or 400 clients. That is what I've noticed. It might be different elsewhere, but what I've noticed is that those people who pay me on time, who make big orders, who are happy to see me, who are happy to spend, otherwise who are getting it right in the amorous relationship. So if we can extrapolate that and make it and take it to the bigger scene, you can see what and how important it is to make sure that people are fulfilled in terms of the way they run their amorous lifestyles and the way they treat other people, and they're generally kinder. I mean, when you've had you even yourself as a person, when you have a good night of a good night, or you wake up, the whole world looks sunny.
Yes.
You know, you see a small child crossing the street. Hey, stop.
And when you even generally have a pleasant encounter or relationship,
yes, it spills over to every other thing you do.
It just extends to.
So
okay,
I'm
so
sure.
On that note, I just want you to wrap everything up for us.
Okay.
In one takeaway.
Okay. So
one takeaway back, so that some would say that nuggets of wisdoms,
yeah.
you know, in a summary.
Okay.
You know, so for those that think we have occupied their space in a hurry, at least in a nutshell, in a summary, all that you've said and all the conversations we've had, you put it into one bowl of akpela and
swallow it with fatty.
yes, fatty, adama fatty.
Yeah, what do adamota? Adama elephant or kento. I prefer
amadachi galan kona chofofonu fofonu
3 shots
me abakonko motade ko akoko pote
for foundation so basically to wrap up, these are seemingly insignificant conversations that we're having, but the truth of the matter is they all I want to use a word that I'm afraid to use, but I'll use it anyway. They all dovetail into making sure that the society that we are forming is productive, is kind, is humane, is productive, and that at the end of the day, I'm fine, you are fine, the random person you meet on the street is fine, and that generally the goodness of a relationship spreads into being the goodness of Ghana. Cut. Make wait for.
So on that note, I think that basically would as much as possible we have to try to look at the source of toxicity in relationships and avoid it, or even go for therapy and counseling, like we said, and with that we would have a healthy society. And so on that note, we've come to the end of another episode of Spill the Tea podcast, and your usual face, as you see, Queen Nita, and with me having the discussion and the conversation has been Kofi Gbedemah, KG. Thanks for coming on the show with me. See you next week. And please follow Phoenix Media Studios on all social media platforms and our handles as displayed on the screen. On that note, I'll see you next week. Same place, same channel. Bye-bye. Bye.